Oh, friends, how long and lonely has the time without you been? But fear not. I've returned. I brought with me my total lack of readiness to begin, as usual, and I'm on my way. It's another wonderful day in Los Angeles. Happy Sunday to you. Don't forget to move your clocks forward. It's not 10 o'clock in the morning right now in Los Angeles. It's actually 11 o'clock in the morning right now. Boy, sure doesn't feel like 11 o'clock in the morning. What with all this waking up and everything. So anyway, I want to really direct today's live stream towards the world's most important concerns, okay? And top of that list, of course, is a little something we call body and sheen. In my mind, step one in repairing the world from its current state of inadequate buttfuckery is to improve the amount of body and sheen in women's hair. Now that's going to require a serious commitment to Studio by L'Oreal. Why don't I ever hear people talking about Studio by L'Oreal? I should. Because if you want body and sheen, you need to really pick the right shampoo. But besides merely body and sheen, there are multiple other topics I wanted to discuss today. Such as Spite Monkey Mike, what I call him? Spite Monkey Mike attempted yesterday to start some shit in the premiere. But he'd gotten apparently a new account, you know. That I'd banned him from his Michael Smith account. And I was delighted to see that he put a couple of just garbage kind of things into the chat. Nobody responded to him at all. But I figured out just immediately, oh, this is this guy under a different thing. And I banned him immediately, so I laugh at the thought of him being somewhat frustrated at this. Like, but, yeah, you are not intuitive enough to fool anybody around here, you know? We're gonna pick up on what's going on immediately every time. You're never gonna pull a fast one. I'm also quite convinced that was he representing Eliana the other night, trying very clearly to get me to admit being a scumbag. Except I'm not, is the problem, right? He kept asking all these questions about how wouldn't it be great if I had all these women and stuff like that. I'm like, no. So, there's that. Andre, what is up? Well, I also wanted to report on my shorts experiment so far. So, although the video I made about my shorts experiment got fewer views than anything I've ever made, practically. I find it very interesting because in one day my shorts experiment on the shorts channel, one day, my first day of attempting it, I got 14,000 views. And this is a channel that had no subscribers. Well, now it has 28, but, what the fuck is all I can say about that. Like, what is this world coming to? I can throw up shit tons of 6-second videos of a doll saying some random shit and outperform the what would you call this? What's the word I'm looking for? The ephemera spewing juggernaut that is Talking with Famous People. Which is to say, on Talking with Famous People, I have generated so much media. And I've said so many things of significance. And I've explained things that are worth explaining. I've tried to solve people's political misconceptions and language misconceptions. And I'm trying to do good work over here, right? But I can't beat myself just putting up 6-second videos of a doll saying something. I can't even come close to beating myself. By the time this experiment is over with these 90 shorts that I uploaded, I bet you, in those 3 or 4 days, that shorts channel will beat my main channel in terms of views for the whole month. What the fuck is up with that? What the fuck is up with that? Is all I can say, you know? So, like, my most popular shorts are jokey ones. Anything that's serious doesn't do as well. But, like, when I just have Tiffany say, "I'm Tiffany, I'm a leader. That's what I always say. Smile." That gets like 2,100 views. Why? Or when I have Tiffany positioned like kind of spread eagle looking, and I have her say, "How long do I have to stay like this? My knees are hurting." 2,500 views. All I gotta say, I was pleased that the video I have of Corduroy saying, "If ifs and buts was candy," I'm sorry, "if its and buts was cocaine and sluts, logic class would be a lot more popular." I was happy to see that get 500 views. I mean, I get it. Like, one-liners are great, and a succession of if I'm less hit and miss, I guess you could say, on my shorts than I am on other things, but if I really weren't hit and miss, and all of my shorts popped, I can understand wanting to watch a feed of all those doll videos in succession or something, like, because I can see just sort of digging, watching the next one, seeing what comes next, and it's just a one-line thing or whatever. Yeah, true. Wiser words have never been said, right? I mean, I do have some good jokes and stuff, but I don't find that the better jokes necessarily do better, as I consider the better jokes. You know, I had this video, a short that was on the main channel, in which Rachel and I are driving by Man's Chinese Theater, and I'm filming it for a second. I say, Chinese theater, racist theater, more like it. That got like 1,500 views. And it's like, I don't even know if people think I'm being serious. Like, the cool thing with shorts is, because you don't see me, it's like if you're on the shorts feed and you see that thing, you don't know what to make of it, really. Is this really some guy who sounds like Eric sounds right now actually saying this because he actually believes it? If you're familiar with my channel, you know that that's just a joke, right? Like, that's just me being absurd. But if you're not, you have no idea what the channel is or anything about me, what do you make of that? I mean, is this guy serious? Is he joking? It's not exactly clear, because you have so little information. But the other cool thing about shorts that I like a lot is, and I haven't taken much advantage of it, but I want to start taking more advantage of it, is the way that it lets you add like a succession of little 1-second chunks next to each other. So I can take like a doll, and if I wanted to, I think I will do more of this, I can have the doll say like, I pledge allegiance to the... Yeah, I could do that. Apparently Putin may have a mental illness because of steroids that were used to treat his cancer. If Putin has an illness, it's called, he's still alive. We haven't blown him up yet. That's his illness. That's Russia's illness. Russia's illness is that we haven't blown up Putin yet. Of course, I've been reading a few frustrating comments on my point about rights. Well, I mean, but can't people say that they have the right to health care and that the government's responsible to give it to them? The thing is this. First of all, positive rights are attained contractually. And so, in order to justify this notion in general, philosophers, you might say, or Rousseau, you might say, came up with Andre, I'm proud of you. Andre went to the only place in town and just ordered plenty of cheese. And he's going to keep an eye out the whole time to make sure they don't touch his cheese with their fingers. That's good. Eric, you could probably ask, if the clock time was moved 1 hour ahead, and you have to wake up at a set clock time for work, do you get to sleep 1 more hour or 1 less hour? That's not a bad bad TI question. Although I gotta say, I'd probably test TI poll on it myself. Just the other day, Rachel and I were in the car, we were having a conversation. So when my mechanic had COVID, and I ended up having to just take the car because of various assorted meowings, I had to basically I had to give in to my dad and let him take my car to Firestone, which is his place, to fix it. Which meant that it came back with a bunch of extra shit that I didn't need and didn't want, and etc. But anyhow, when the car came back to me, because Firestone sucks ass, they had my clock had been an hour fast when I gave it to Firestone. When I got it back from Firestone, it was an hour slow. And Rachel and I had quite an extended conversation the other day about whether or not, when the time changed, it was going to be right or more wrong. And I couldn't figure it out. So I found out today. Oh, it's more wrong. Well, maybe I was just having brain failure moment or something. The problem is this: you spring forward, but you lose an hour. It's like, it should be backwards loses, forwards gains, right? That's the problem with the whole time change thing. If you don't mix your shit like that, right? Don't spring forward into losing an hour. That doesn't make any sense. But it does make sense, but I don't like it anyway. What's the best way to tell apart ESTP and ENTP? I mean, ask him to complete the second half of a story. If you watched yesterday's video, or maybe the day before, when I typed that Entp chick, and I started the story with the peacock, just watch the way I can barely say, okay, now you take over, before she's, and it turns out the manager himself's a peacock, and blah, 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 blah. You know, it's like, only ENTPs are so thoroughly already on board with what's going on that they are ready to push you out of the way and just That's okay, Rain. I experienced it twice back in the fall. So in the end, it's all zero sum. Where did I put my cigarettes? So anyway, this rights thing. It's like, so Rousseau, I guess it was who invented this idea, this concept. Somebody else, maybe, I don't know. Talks about the social contract. The social contract is just another metaphor to attempt to legitimize the wrong usage you had in the first place, right? So it is the case that positive rights, like the right to something, the right to healthcare, are attained contractually. But it is not the case that constituents have a contractual relationship with their government. So, I mean, calling it a social contract doesn't change that reality. And is exactly what I'm talking about, right? That's the problem. If you think that you can justify a right to health care by just saying it's the government that has a duty to provide it, you're not using the word duty correctly. The duties are the outcome of rights. So it's like Oh, here comes my dad. Yeah, come in. Hi, Dad. What's going on? I'm live streaming at the moment, but I can pause it.
You're working?
Well, sort of. I'm live streaming, but let me mute the mic. Okay, so basically my dad just wanted to come out and chat with me, which is very, very unusual. And he doesn't really know how to say that, even though it's as simple as that. So, but then of course, when I say to him, well, I'm talking about rights versus entitlements, and I kind of just got started, but you want to eat together later? That's not on my agenda, right? That's not what he was thinking about, really. I haven't prepared anything, is what he said. Those were his exact words. I haven't prepared anything. I asked him, do you want to eat later? And he said, I haven't prepared anything. Talk about tool function SI, right? You want to eat together later? He says, I haven't prepared anything. Okay, so a positive right is that which affords another party a duty to do or provide something. A negative right is a right that confers a duty not to do something. So negative rights can be universalized, right? There's nothing that Joe has to do, particularly, to confer onto me the duty to not bash him in the back of the head with a baseball bat. There are no criteria Joe has to meet in order to enjoy that right, and for me to have that duty. On the other hand, if I have a right to food at McDonald's, it's because I've met a standard first, namely I've given them the money at the first window, and now they have a duty to provide me my food at the second window, and I have a right to it. That's a positive right. So, of course, almost all instances of positive rights are contractual. Now, there are additionally what you might call legally defined rights, such as the right to vote. But the right to vote is not actually a right. It's legally called one, it's legally defined as one, but it doesn't stem from, and it stems presumably from ownership, right? The constituents own the government in some regard, and so have the right to have their voice as a stockholder. It's a more logical positive right than almost any other you can imagine, because at least it stems from the concept of of because all parties are equally subject to the law as citizens, then each should have equal voice in deciding it, right? But the thing is, we don't actually ever treat voting like a right. We treat it a lot more like a privilege. If you commit crimes, if you're a felon, you don't get to vote. Even after you paid your debt to society. So then it's not really a right, because you wouldn't be able to forfeit it like that. You'd only be able to forfeit it temporarily. Additionally, we don't treat it like a right because there are periodically advocacies in favor of mandatory voting, or they have mandatory voting in Australia. And also because there's a broad, public campaign that voting is good and you should vote. No, nobody ever says you should take more advantage of your right to free speech. Nobody says you should take more advantage of your right to choose your own religion. It's because rights aren't anybody else's business, right? It's like, so the thing is, you're both right. ESTJs are potentially good car mechanics. My dad raced Mini Coopers in Europe and did all of his own car work and stuff, and continued to do some of his own car work until he determined that it basically wasn't worth the time, money, energy exchange, And then Eliana says, I would think the best people for car mechanics would be front stack SE users. I mean, I think the relationship with TE and TI there is, well, because there's a certain amount of conditionality in an engine as a system, it's somewhat a physical manifestation of TI, like a circuit board. But STJ stuff in general, I would agree. ISTPs also potentially, but that's only if that's the thing they get into. It's like ISTPs will be good at what they get into, and they're not going to get into a bunch of shit, I was watching a video, can't remember the title though, where you were talking about having Thanksgiving and how STJs have specific times to eat and other funny little rules for holiday dinner. Well, it's not even rules so much. They've got expectations. They have an understanding in their head of why everything's where it is and how it's supposed to be used. And when you run afoul of that, you get scolded. It's like, this happened the other night. This crazy fucking shit happened the other night. Rachel and I went into the house to watch the basketball game with my dad. But the problem was this. He wanted to watch the game together when we ate, which we did watch some of the UCLA game together when we ate. But I wanted to watch the USC game together because we're USC fans, right? But by the time we came back in for the USC game, which was after the UCLA game, well, my dad had never really changed from his initial thing, which was we're going to eat and watch the game that's on together. And then he hadn't really he didn't have in his plans this it going down exactly like it went down. So anyway, we go back in there to watch the SC game, and the closed captions that he has on are placed on the TV right at basket level for the game that's on. Now, every time Rachel and I go in there to watch a game with him, the last 10 times in a row or something, he says to us, feel free to turn off the closed captions. That's totally fine. And usually we don't, or we do, or whatever. So this time, when I see the problem of the fact that closed captions are horribly placed on this channel on this occasion, I take initiative to turn off the closed captions myself. Don't you think you should have asked? Ownership, Eric. That's what happened to me. And I said, well, I guess, the last bunch of times you've said, this isn't those times, is it? No, you're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have assumed. And that's the thing. He is right. If NI doesn't exist, if NI doesn't exist and FE is totally unconscious, then he's absolutely right. And hey, what can I say? Not a goddamn thing I can say. It's like, nope, you're right. I assumed and acted presumptuously with your property. Ownership, Eric. I've heard from him so many times if I touch his stuff or whatever. And of course, it makes me, it was like, okay, I do not want to watch the game in here at all anymore. But which was fine with him, because he didn't really want to watch that game with us. He had wanted to watch the previous game, and we had watched some of it, but in other words, he wants things exactly like he wants things. And all ideas must originate from him. That's just that third slot NE. Can I read your voting question? Why do individuals vote when it's rarely the case that one vote makes a difference, making it economically a net negative to waste time and effort to do so? Well, people aren't rational actors, for one thing. There's a simple, reductive, not correct exactly answer is people want to avoid cognitive dissonance. If they want to complain about the current president, it helps to have voted for the other one. You can say, I was right, see? You should have voted like I did. It isn't my fault. I voted against this guy. And that allows you to complain with less cognitive dissonance. The thing is, the reason people have this weird relationship with voting is primarily because the political parties are such that the Democrats have had a net advantage to increasing the amount of people voting. And there's never been the correct articulation of how people ought to think about voting. The truth is, most people shouldn't vote because they don't know enough to vote, they don't care enough to vote, and they just fundamentally aren't politically engaged. They don't think well, they don't make decisions well about politics, so why should they vote? I'm not saying they shouldn't be allowed to vote. They definitely should be allowed to vote, but that's how we should frame it. It's like everybody has the right to vote, quote unquote, in a citizen democracy. Responsible citizens understand when they themselves are qualified to exercise that right. I have the right to own a gun, but I don't own one. Why? Frankly, I don't think I'd be a very good gun owner. I'm kind of in kind of an intuitard, you know? And so maybe I shouldn't own a gun. That doesn't mean maybe I shouldn't have the right to own a gun. That's ridiculous, men like gods. That's ridiculous. But the point is, if we were talking about voting correctly, we would be talking about it like that. We'd be saying, hey everybody, kids in school, some of you have the kinds of minds and personalities that will potentially make you into statesmen or politically active citizens. Most of you do not, and that's okay. But the most important thing is, if you find this civics class super boring, you do not care how the citizen democracy is organized, you do not retain this information, then don't vote. Let people who are knowledgeable vote instead. Treat it like any other right. I have the right to go ski down. If I buy a lift ticket and stuff, ski down the most craziest, hardest slope on the mountain. That doesn't mean I should do it. No, I do not live in a privileged neighborhood. Okay? Everybody, being safe is not a privilege. That's a right. It means you can expect to not have your rights violated. I do live in a rich neighborhood, but being safe is not a privilege, and neither is being rich, frankly. To the extent that I enjoy an easy freedom that others don't, it's not that I'm privileged, it's that they aren't able to attain an equivalent standard of life that we all should enjoy, right? The problem with the idea of privilege is that it's backwards. Let's say there were something like white privilege. The problem isn't ever that there's some privilege going on, it's that some people are being denied those same courtesies. If we treat it as though the people who are being treated well, that's the problem because they get to be treated well, I mean, we've really got our heads up our asses. The problem is never with the people who aren't suffering. The problem is with the fact that people are suffering, right? And we have to speak well. We have to use language right and say that. Let's say we were in Jim Crow era. The problem wasn't white privilege. It was black oppression. Should we worry about World War III now? I'm not especially. I'm not one to normally say how other people should feel about things. I'm much more likely to say what other people should say about things, you know. Eliana, is that really you? I'm not sure it is. ISFPs cannot 7th function with 8th. Right, so ISFP, I should have said that differently, I realized. I almost want to remake that video because I need to use the right verb for each kind of function. So it should say like, because ISFPs cannot consciously use logic to check their ideas or in conjunction with the ideational action function, they have to use learned information to check against instead. Eric, was I commenting? Oh, it's like someone left a comment with your name as their username on one of your videos, and in their comment they talked about themselves. You so I removed it. It was obvious. Ooh, yeah. Probably just want to ban that account. Well, I know why he went there. It's because he tried to pull it off in the premiere yesterday with a different account, but I instant banned it because it was obvious. No. First of all, Eliana, are you really Eliana? Or are you Michael? And if you are Michael and you want to continue being Michael, then it doesn't do you any good to demonstrate this pattern of fraud, of intellectual fraud that you're doing. It just makes very clear that you have no ground to stand on. That's not learning new information. Look, extroverted intuition doesn't learn new information. I mean, she's going to continue having the same problem for as long as she continues to position herself as an Entp. We have examples of actual young woman Entps, and they look nothing like her. And we can point to those examples, and we could put them side by side, and show that it's delusional for her to claim that she's an Entp. You'd have to ignore. And look, the thing is, depending on where SI is in your function stack, whether or not you need to experience, how much you need to experience the difference to understand it, is Okay, Ann says, it's a common tactic done by some manipulative people. No hate to her. She claims harassment, easy support with little evidence. Or no evidence. There was zero evidence provided. I suspect she got a couple of DMs and or emails that she really didn't like, but that does not comprise harassment. I mean, first of all, where went the obligation of the individual to exercise their own agency? You do not have to watch any video you don't want to. Nobody's forcing anybody to watch any videos. Nobody's forcing anybody to read anything, Yeah, that's... I didn't even get to that part. It was so absolutely nuts up to that point that I didn't even need to get to that part. Believe all women. Well, so extroverted intuition isn't about learning new information. Extroverted intuition isn't intuition at all, really. Okay, it's poorly named. Thus, you might call it creativity or something, but remember that the mechanics of extroverted intuition can be easily explained, while the mechanics of introverted intuition are much more challenging to explain. Extroverted intuition works like this. If I want to come up with something new, here's one way it works that's very easy to explain and anybody can attempt. I want to come up with a story. I'm going to pick an object from my field of vision, in this case these sunglasses. And I'm going to tell a story by linking these sunglasses to something unrelated to the universality of sunglasses, but that I remember about these sunglasses. So I might tell a story about like if I wanted to make a fun story, I would take the basis of a true story for me, which is that Delilah originally had some heart sunglasses like that, and then I borrowed her sunglasses for quite a long time until she saw me one day on the channel wearing them, and she's like, and then she put up like a TikTok or whatever of her showing me on the screen saying, "There are my fucking sunglasses," you know. So I would incorporate some of that, and then except in the story now, what would happen is it would be like magical. So her account was really successful when she had those sunglasses, and she was booming. And then I borrowed the sunglasses, and my eyes start blowing up, and she just goes totally dead, right? And it would have to be something like that. So that's how extroverted intuition works. In that instance, I took an example of sunglasses, a true story from my own life that's particular to me about my daughter, and then I made it more NI. I found the NI aspect to it, which is if you wanted to make this a story, then they would have to be magical or something, right? Like it would turn out that since she and I both were social media producers, that the sunglasses would link to that, and whoever had them would be successful. And and it's driving a rift between father and daughter. And then I guess the solution would be they team up and make one channel together, maybe, or something. I don't know. Or the dad realizes he should stop stealing his daughter's sunglasses. There'd be some moral to the story. But you can see how there I created an original story out of 3 different kinds of attention. Extroverted sensing, looking around and finding something to pick up and show you. I used introverted sensing, what I actually remember about, because my daughter gave me these sunglasses after she took hers back. She got another pair for me. So now we each have a pair of them. And then I found I guess you might say an NI linkage there that implies a concept. Namely, okay, 1 pair of sunglasses, 2 social media makers, stealing back and forth each other's sunglasses. Stealing back and forth same sunglasses. Well, why would they be doing that? Why not just get a second pair? Well, they must be magical or something. So that's actually using TI there too. It's and that's why Entps, I guess, are so able to make shit up on the fly. Is I have automatic access to as much SE as I need for any, which, in other words, if SI, NI, TI aren't producing things, then I can always pick up another object. Oh, and there was also a remote control there. But yeah, what I just demonstrated was SE, SI, NI with TI. Checking the NI for getting to the NI via a TI kind of question. Well, why wouldn't they just get a second pair of sunglasses? Here comes my dad again. Yeah.
Got a minute?
I
30
can't.
seconds.
Yeah, sure. Let me just mute this. SE is not acquiring new information. It's action and or like when I'm looking around for something to pick up, right? I'm scanning my environment in real time, attending to stuff around me. In that regard, it's extroverted sensing. And so, like, let's say I were to just do this. Bottle of pills, ashtray full of cigarette butts, empty double gulp, folded up paper that I've written down Jordan Peterson things on, torch, microphone, mouse, remote control, container of weed. I'm just doing SENI. I'm looking at things and stating their identity in that instance. So, am I gathering new information? Well, acquiring new information? Well, yeah, sort of, in the sense that I'm attending to actualities in the moment. But as you can see for me, my extroverted sensing only attends to a little actuality of the moment. Oh, here's some sunglasses. And the rest of it is not attending to actuality in the moment. It's attending to what I remember about my relationship with the sunglasses and my daughter. It's attending to what I know about narratives and like what makes this story that has to have some sort of conflict or whatever in it. So it's attending to that. It's attending to the verisimilitude question, the TI matter. Well, if in fact these two kept, fighting over a pair of sunglasses, why wouldn't they just buy two pairs of them and they could each have a pair of them? Well, we've got to have an answer to that question. And so then introverted intuition knows the answer to that is these are special sunglasses. They're magic in some way. They're unique. And then extroverted intuition continues to talk. If we were going to personify these cognitive functions like that, like extroverted sensing and introverted sensing are well named because they both are genuinely forms of sensing. But extroverted intuition is not well named because extroverted intuition relies on introverted intuition to be intuitive. The intuitive parts of extroverted intuition are all NI. My dad, what happened here, this is a perfect example of how extroverted intuition actually works in people who aren't any DOMs or any tool. So, my dad came out this morning. He wanted to chat. This is very unusual for him because he doesn't know how to say, I just would like to chat with you for a while about casual things. He doesn't know how to say that. He thinks it's not an acceptable reason to engage somebody, basically. So, I could see that he wanted to chat, and I want to be a good son and make sure I spend time with him and stuff. So, I said, well, I just got started on this. I'm explaining the difference between rights and entitlements, and which he goes, because he was a political science professor. So, yeah, he knows what I'm talking about. It's not like it's all Greek to him. Anyway, then, as anticipated, he takes away the fact that I had said, no, I can't talk to you now, and that I had said, maybe we should eat together later. And when I said that initially, he's like, I don't have anything prepared, is what he said, which is a crazy response to maybe we should eat together later. It means I didn't come up with that idea. That's what he means by I didn't have anything prepared. So he comes back later and he says, I have an idea now. My idea is that we can watch the tournament selection show and have an early dinner. I'll go get pizza and we'll watch the men's selection show, and then the women's selection show comes on after that. And we watch. My dad is just as much a fan of women's college sports, Pac-12. I mean, he's a Pac-12 fan, so he kind of prefers women's basketball because Pac-12 does better generally in women's basketball than it does in men's basketball. So regardless, now it's his idea, and I'm going along with it. And that's how he likes it. Now that's his extroverted intuition. Was that very intuitive of him? No. Did he come up with an idea of how we could spend some time together? Yes. Was it my idea that we should eat together later? Yes, but it was he needed to contextualize the whole thing. And otherwise, if you're anti-polar, then for him to have a good idea or something, for him to know what something is, even to ideate about something, he's really got to add a lot of contextual details. He's got to say, all right, we're going to watch this. I'm going to go get the pizza at this time. What do you have on your schedule? And so that when, in fact, we're spending the time together, he already has a good SI knowledge of how it was in his head, and so therefore how it's going to go. So, and that's fine. And it's like, things I'm frequently saying to Rachel are things like, it's super annoying, but it's fine. And it's my duty and privilege to do it my dad's way and not the way I want. Like, for example, he likes to do weird ass shit like this. So, we have trouble getting my mom's haircut because she doesn't necessarily cooperate with people who are messing with her like that, and haircutters don't necessarily want to work on somebody who's got dementia and going like or something, you know. So it's a bit of a problem. And we were talking about it at the Cheesecake Factory, and I said, "Well, Dad, would you like to delegate this task to me? Because I will take care of it if you want me to." But the answer was, no, I don't, you know, it's like, that's a challenge that causes him to really have a come to Jesus moment. Ah, shit. Now Eric's making me say whether I'm just musing about this, about Eric doing something, or whether I actually want him to do something. Because if I actually want him to do something, then I have to either be specific about what I want him to do, or I have to delegate a task, in which case I have to not care about how he does it. And this is a conundrum for my dad. So what does he do? He splits the fucking difference. He goes down to the barbershop, the one that I used to go to, that he still goes to, the one in Temple City, the Mexican ladies, as we call them. And he talks to that Mexican lady down there and says, and tries to explain to her and get her on board with this conceptually, right? Apparently gets her on board conceptually, and then comes back here to me and says, I've done this part, now you go do the rest. That is not how I want things to go down, because then what happens? What do I have to do? I have to go talk to that lady myself I have to go talk to that lady and not any other lady because he did that part, right? Except, of course, when I go in there and try to explain why I'm there and what's going on, she doesn't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So maybe he had the other Mexican lady he talked to. I'm not sure if I got the right Mexican lady, because there's two of them down there, but they're only one at a time, and they look kind of similar. So I made the appointment for Tuesday at 11, but even at the end, she didn't understand what was going on, because I tried to explain it, who I was, what was going on with my mom, and then I said, yeah, 11 a.m. on Tuesday. What's the name? Jane. And she wrote down James, thinking it was me. And she hadn't gotten any of what I was saying. So I'm just going to show up with my mom on Tuesday. I mean, medical transport's going to bring her down to the barbershop. She's going to have her appointment. And I'm going to have to probably go in there ahead of time and try to explain again. But of course, that woman's got us, once again, finally, I think, but a steady stream of just person after person. Not necessarily a bunch of people waiting, but it seems like she's always got somebody in the chair, right? So it's not really, she doesn't really have time to sit there and understand this complicated thing I'm explaining, since she doesn't even speak English that well, And my Spanish isn't that great. I mean, the thing is, though, Eliana Diaz, I'm a big Mexican lover. Don't get me wrong. I love Mexicans. I married two of them. Okay, so my daughter's part Mexican. My in-laws for my first wife were it was like full blast Mexico down there, And I will tell you, though, that Mexican culture is more SFJ than American culture. There's a higher prioritization on SFJ shit, like family gatherings and eating and drinking. And so it is not necessarily unfair to say, culturally, Mexicans express the values of SFJs in general more so than Americans, I guess. But the thing is, I've spent my whole life deeply integrated with Mexicans, hearing Spanish all over the place and stuff, and engaging with them all the time. And it's so I might occasionally say things about Mexicans because it's just I don't know, it's an LA thing. Mexicans and white people are cool with each other in LA. We like each other a lot, It's I think there are a lot of quote unquote rich white people in LA who would never dream of hiring white people to do anything. You can't hire white people. What are you talking about? They're fucking garbage. You gotta hire Mexicans. They know what they're doing. My daughter says shit like that. And, it's just and when she does, I just go, yeah, it's true. But that's just an LA thing. I mean, you got to understand that LA is LA, and it's got a very specific, very Mexican culture around here. It's super Mexican. Billboards, lots of billboards in Spanish, lots of soccer ads for, products that are linked in with endorsement deals with Mexican soccer teams and stuff. And so it's super Mexico around here. And I love it. I have always loved Mexicans because, why? they know how to party and they know how to chill, and also they're not full of shit. What more can you ask? You know? They know how to work hard, they know how to party, they know how to chill, and they're not full of shit. What more can you ask out of life? The capacity to do meaningful work, to party well, to chill, and whatever that other one I said was. And not be full of bullshit. You know? Yeah, there's not a lot of pretension there. Not a lot of unnecessary devil's advocacy pushing back against stuff I'm saying for no reason. Keep in mind when I'm saying this, I'm talking about LA Mexicans as a culture. Obviously, no individual human being you can conclude anything about based on a group label like that. So, if for any individual Mexican, there is no reason to conclude that they're anything like that. I want to make that absolutely clear. Like, when I was younger, Dave Porter and I don't know if we were the only ones who had it. I think we were the only ones maybe who used this particular classification, but there were what we called city Mexicans and Mexican Mexicans. City Mexicans are like Mexicans from LA or Mexicans from like Mexico City or whatever. But then the Mexican Mexicans are like caballeros types that still wear like their cowboy hats and shit and stuff like that. Those are Mexican Mexicans. I remember having this discussion with Dave Porter over menudo. I actually was eating it too. We both were eating menudo because it is a great hangover cure. At this Mexican restaurant on Fair Oaks in Old Town Pasadena that has all these murals on it, like Mayan style murals. And I'm like, I'm not quite sure what the deal is. It's like, are those people who made those pyramids Mexicans? And we had this conversation about maybe they're Mexican Mexicans rather than city Mexicans. I don't know. I had to be about 17 or 18 years old. It was basically before the internet, and there were plenty of things I didn't know much about, I guess. Hi, Rachel, darling. How's my precious wonder doing? Wasn't it exciting yesterday at the track? So I hit a superfecta. 10-cent bet, paid $100. You can box those superfectas at 10 cents as the minimum bet. So that you can box a superfecta for $2.40 bet, right? Because, I mean, there's no point in not boxing a superfecta. Well, in case you don't know, superfecta is, you're saying the first four places in order. So, first place you get right, second place you get right, third place you get right, fourth place you get right in one race. So, in the last race we bet before we went, I superfecta boxed 4 horses. Then I kept 3 and added a different one. Superfecta boxed that. Then kept a different original 3 and added that one, superfecta boxed that, then put back the original other 3 and this other one, superfecta boxed that. So I had like four different superfecta bets, each of them $2.40. But technically that constituted 4 times 24 is 96 bets, okay? 96 bets for $8 plus 40 cents times 4, another $1.60, so $9.60 worth of bets. So out of those, so technically it was 96 10-cent bets that I made, right? And it turns out that the longest shot in the race won the race, the 6 horse. And I had him as one of my ones that I took, I added in. I said, okay, here are the 4 favorites. Now, I'm going to pull one of the favorites out and put it in this guy. And I pull one of these favorites out and put in this guy. And that guy was 6, it turned out. I thought I had lost until I carefully looked at each of the tickets, and I was like, you know what? Actually, I think I did win this one. And I knew it was going to be a high amount of a payoff in terms of Miata 1. But I also knew it was a 10-cent bet, so even if you have a high amount of Miata 1, it's not going to be that much. But I was surprised it was $100. Paid $102, and that meant that Rachel and I were $40 up overall in our betting. Although it did cost us $20 to get in 2 $10 tickets is $20. So then we were technically only up $20. But the way I saw that is our trip to the track got me 2 free packs of cigarettes, which is pretty good. It's like score. Whenever you leave the horse track ahead, score. You don't have to be up by a bunch. If you're even broke even, score. But it's fun. It's fun betting the horses, huh, Rachel? It's also funny seeing how, like, Rachel takes her gambling much more seriously than me. She hits something every time, I think, pretty much. Like, I think if it had just been Rachel gambling by herself, she would have been, like, probably lost, like, $8 or something. Because she liked to bet a given horse across the board, this is a good betting strategy, by the way. I recommend Rachel's betting strategy. Take your first 3 choices for you think you're going to win the race, and bet each of them across the board. If you get lucky, they might go 1, 2, 3, and then you've got three paying tickets, And if not, you get good. It's good insurance. You're covering your own bets without necessarily cannibalizing yourself. So it's a good strategy. That's how Rachel bets. I like superfectas because because of what happened yesterday, I guess. The thing is, it wouldn't have paid like that except for the fact that the longest shot in the race won the race. It came in first. It didn't just end up in the 4th spot or something where it would have still made it onto the superfecta, but it wouldn't have paid nearly as much. And, it's like, we got to see where the horses are walking down that tunnel to go out onto the track and look at each of them. And there was one race where, in fact, I'll probably make a video where I put together my little clips from the trip to the track and upload it. It's not too much work for me. It won't be too much work. It's not that much shit. Anyway, there's one where they started right in front of us. Like they pulled because they moved the gate around where they start to different places. We were there for 2 turf races, unfortunately. Out of the 4 races we were there for, 2 of them were turf races. So the turf's the more inside track. So if you can have a better view of it from the infield, but we were at the rail, so there was no reason. I mean, I didn't want to go. I did want to go show Rachel that go under the tunnel and go into the infield, but I forgot about it. We never did that. Anyway, but when they did one of the dirt races, they moved the gate to just before the finish line, and then they had to go all the way around, and then by the time they get back over here, though, you know, they've driven the gate away, so it's not in their way anymore. So anyway, that was really cool because as the horses were walking to the gate, I was able to tell each of them what I wanted from them. So I was able to say, okay, number 3 horse, listen. You need to just take it easy today. Don't try too hard, okay? Today's not your day, and that's okay. I want you to feel okay with failing today. And I know they were listening, the horses, but they weren't obeying, it turned out. That number 3 horse, he ignored everything I was saying. But it turned out to be good, I think, in that race because Rachel ended up having him. The first time you went to a horse race, you bet on a horse that dropped dead. The second time, you bet right after I got over the horse's lame leg. I bet on a horse that was taken out for deciding not to race. Well, it was also a good day to go because it's in this post-COVID, not quite back to what things used to be, but moving there. So it wasn't super crowded. We could really move around and not have to jostle people. We could get right up against the rail, no problem. And yet there were a decent number of people there. It's like it used to be. They raced 7 days a week during racing season, and that would have been like a Tuesday. But now that's a Saturday. I think they had a big stakes race planned for the 8th or something, but we didn't stick around for it. But didn't draw because people just aren't really accustomed. Like, you know, I still haven't started and probably won't resume ever going to the barber. We'll just probably give each other haircuts. Rich and me give ourselves haircuts now. My behavior has changed because of COVID in that regard. But it was nice that there was this sort of not very crowdedness to it yesterday because it makes it a lot better for filming things, taking pictures and stuff like that when you don't have a shit ton of people around getting in every single shot you take and or looking at you like, are you filming me? It's like, yeah, I am. You have no expectation of privacy in a public space, so just fuck off. But I don't even want to get into that. I fucked that up. I pulled an Eric, okay? Sometimes I just want to slap myself like a Japanese person does when they're trying to motivate themselves. Osh! Yeah, the Mexican ladies do. Your NI game was cool. I made a mistake because I saw your mistakes and thought your chart was an example, so I built my own because you usually test us. It's just like, if you think, is that really a mistake or is Eric trying to fool me? It's probably a mistake. I am mistake prone. It's funny, that makes me understand how that's a great example of how Rachel and I process things differently, and sometimes I forget to try to think of myself, think of what it would be like from her cognitive function perspective. So when the crowd's getting all loud and noisy and everyone being all excited, I'm saying stuff. I'm saying stuff like, "No, number 3, you didn't listen to me. I explained this to you before the race." I'm saying stuff like that. So I'm not paying attention to the energy in the crowd, because I'm expressing my own energy about what's happening and my distaste that this horse failed to listen to me when I had given him all the excuses he needed to fail. Because, I knew like he was the one I didn't have on anything that had a good shot at it or whatever. Because a lot of times you got to bet a horse race is like, I'm going to bet against this horse that's getting a lot of action. And I'll bet various things where somehow that horse loses and the other guys therefore win. And that was that race I did that. So, because that's my storytelling, right? That's the same story I'm telling by the time they get to the end of the race, which is that horse was supposed to listen to me. But Rachel, meanwhile, is a receiver. And so it's natural that she's receiving all of this experience rather than acting upon it. I'm acting upon it with extroverted intuition. Meanwhile, everybody else around me is acting upon it via extroverted sensing's automatic extroverted intuition or something. Everybody else is saying, "Go number 1, go, run, run, run." I'm literally saying, "I had this conversation with you before the race began, number 3. Why didn't you listen to me? I explained you have ample excuses to fail." I'm literally saying that out loud. So my energy is probably the same as the people around, one way or the other, like either annoyed or excited. But my form of action is extroverted intuition. So I'm saying stupid shit like that, whereas everybody else is saying, "Go number 1, go number 1" around me. But Rachel's just reading the whole energy of the vibe of the thing and being like, "Wow, this is cool. It really erupts and everyone's like so into it and whatever." I bet that's kind of satisfying. In fact, I know that's satisfying because when I'm in receiving mode, like when Rachel and I watched that Twitter of this family watching this kid kick a field goal, we both were just so moved by it. It really kicked us right in the feels, both of us. So I get what it's like when you're in receive mode and the energy of the people really resonates with you. But obviously I'm more naturally in receive mode when I'm choosing to watch something like that on Twitter, like a Twitter video, than when I've bet on something based on my ability to explain to the horses what I want them to do and why they should agree with me on this. Now, that's why extroverted intuitors probably generally don't make good gamblers. Because while I'm gambling, I'm telling various stories to myself about things. or out loud, depending. It's like when everyone's yelling, like if it was dead silent at the rail, I probably wouldn't have been quite so free with my own vocalizations because I just blended in with everybody else making noise, when everybody's going like, I can safely assume they're not listening to me, so I can go, but my own way and not worry about people looking at me weird. Coffee's ready. And I kind of fucked up my knee somewhere somehow a little bit. Not that badly, but enough to make me feel like an old man. Well, Rachel's kind of a bit of a name better, and so am I. Certain names will jump out to me as significant to me, and I'll say, I like the sound of that horse's name. That must be the magic of the universe. For example, Bonnie Bray was a horse, and a horse's name in one of the races. And the Pomona video that I recorded with the cops pushing me off of the curb and stuff, that was at a road called Bonnie Bray Court, or Bonnie Bray Street. So I said, well, I've got to bet that horse. That's got a personal connection to me. I am magically supposed to bet that horse. And then another horse in the race was called Meow Meow Street. I don't know. So I had a horse called Bonnie Bray and a horse called Street. Something Street, Well, I've got to put those two together. I have to bet those two. That's a exacta box right there for sure. And that was not a good betting strategy in that instance. Even though it seemed clear to me that why else would they have Bonnie Bray Street in the horse race if I weren't meant to bet it? Except maybe I was misreading the clue there. Maybe I was supposed to view what happened at Bonnie Bray Street as a bad thing, since somebody got the shit taste out of him and I got I got pushed off the curb by the cop. And I was supposed to avoid those horses. Maybe that's the problem there. Except I view Bonnie Bray Street thing as a good thing because it got me $5,000 and got me something exciting and interesting to talk about. So maybe the universe is trying to teach me that I'm not supposed to evaluate things in terms of how interesting they are. There's how you channel host Eric's father's voice when you speak magical thinking. Well, it's like I don't go gambling in general with the idea that I'm a good gambler and I'm going to win money. I go gambling with the idea that I'll try some things out, right? I'll try some fun, exotic bets I haven't tried before. Or, but, horse racing is particularly fun to bet. And it's a particularly good way to gamble. Because you can stand there for a long time looking at things, making decisions. There's a little bit of a line at the betting windows always, even at the machines. Although now that it's like I hadn't been there in such a long time. I didn't understand basically the process. So when we first started, we went up to one of the few windows that still has a person sitting behind it and dealt with him. They do have a few of those windows. But then I realized, oh, you're supposed to put your cash in one of these things, which gives you a voucher, and then you go to these other machines and you bet on those machines. So once I figured that out, then we excluded the live people from the from the equation until it was time to cash out. You can't cash out of the machines. You got to cash out with a live person. So anyhow, with those machines, it makes it really easy to do a variety of interesting bets at races around, and just the mechanics of the betting makes it slow and fun. There's all at Santa Anita yesterday we had basically there were 4 tracks we could have bet at. I think they were running OTB, right? Santa Anita plus 3 others that we could bet. They were going on at that time. One of them was called Fairgrounds, which wasn't Pomona Fairgrounds, some other fairgrounds. And one of them was Golden Gate, which is Northern California's racetrack. And one of them was I forget the other one. Anyway, the thing is, you always know you've got the actual live horse race that's the centerpiece of your betting action coming up. Kind of like, well, we're definitely going to watch the live race that's in front of us, especially if the horses are going to start over on this side, because then it's like, wow, you're right there, right next to them. Because unlike other sports, you don't have to stay far away from the horse race. You can get right up against the rail. The dirt's right there. You can reach over and touch it, Now, granted, the horses never come that far over to that side because they're trying to make the shortest turn possible. So it has to be they'd have to swing way outside to get close to the outer rail where the people are standing. But still, it's neat that there's not a bunch of fucking barriers of distancing preventing you from accessing things. What other sport do you get to see the athletes walked by right in front of you if you want to? You stand right there, within arm's length, and watch the horse walk right in front of you that you're going to bet on and go, you know what? I don't like that spot on his ass. I don't want to bet that horse after all. Now, here's the thing. Part of the reason why they're able to do this in horse racing is that if they were to do this in regular professional athletics, then and let's say the Lakers were playing against the Clippers, and before starting the basketball game, each member of the Lakers had to walk around this dirt circle and show everybody their bodies and everything. Here I am. I'm going to be playing, and people get to evaluate them and go. If that happened, then people would be saying a lot of mean things to them. You suck, LeBron, or whatever. What I noticed at the horse races is nobody's doing the equivalent thing to the horses. When they walk around the horses around the circle and say, okay, everybody get to look at them, nobody's going Bonnie Bray, your mom was a whore. Nobody's taunting the horses at all. See, that's where I think I potentially have the advantage as a bettor, right? Because, right, yet, I should add that yet. Okay? If I can get in the head of those horses by saying mean things to them, I just need to learn more about their personal lives. Hey, Bonnie Bray, you think that quarter horse is into you? She's not. I was talking to her the other day. She says she thinks you're an asshole. She thinks you're ugly.
Oh, no. I'm not gonna run so well today.
It's what I call psychological betting. I should publish a book called Psychological Betting, the Surefire Horse Racing Systems of Success, in which I explain how to get into the head of your opponents. You've got to demoralize emotionally with cutting remarks the horses that you don't want to win. The reason you don't gamble is because you like to keep your money. That's mostly why I mostly don't gamble either. I do like to gamble, but I rarely gamble. And when I do gamble, I don't gamble very high stakes. That's another good thing about horse racing, right? The default bet is still the same as it's always been. $2. $2 to win, or whatever. So, and everything's structured around that. That's why superfectas, you can bet as little as 10 cents, whereas trifectas, you bet 50 is the minimum. Because it ends up in the $2 to $3 range, you know? I've never been to a horse race. I went to an India casino once, but it was filled with broken, depressing people, and I felt miserable afterwards. I would like to go to Vegas for the buffets, though. Huh. I don't really ever notice the other people around me like that. I don't think about them. I did notice it once in Detroit. At the MGM Grand where I stayed in Detroit. In the casino down there. In the casino down there, people will come up to you and start talking to you like, I've been feeding this machine. Man, it's gonna pay off, I tell you. And, yeah, okay. Anyway, on my way to the breakfast place, so talk to you later. Good luck with your gambling. That was a little depressing. But that's the only time that somebody has to shove it in my face, in other words. I'm not going to pay it that much attention to notice it otherwise. I'm trying not to notice stuff like that. Please don't point stuff like that out to me. Not that you're not right, but I'm better at not noticing that than you, I'm guessing. And that's a superpower we all can enjoy. Horse races are not nearly as depressing as casinos. I mean, first of all, there's a lot of people who will go to a horse race as a fun activity and a weird thing to do, you know, like there was a fair percentage of like hipster types there, right? Then there's high class types, right? So you've got this whole section that's up in the clubhouse where you have to pay another entrance fee if you want to go in there, which is not a good place to be because yes, they got like a restaurant and a bar and everything in there, but they got a bar downstairs too. And if you're sitting up there, you're further away from the action, but you get people dressed more fancy serving you or something. Anyway, there's those stupid fancy people. And then there's like the Mexicans who are like track workers generally. So they're grooms and exercise riders and stuff. And they're done with their morning work. And they're now there betting on ponies too. And then you get some of the sort of old-timey, stereotypical guy's like with a cigar and his papers and his I'm handicapping here. I'm handicapping. And then now, of course, you also get a lot of Asians who racial like guy. This guy just straight up. We're like, here's the guy at the window. Here's us in line behind him, clearly waiting. And this old Chinese guy just goes, yep. I'm like, excuse me. Doesn't turn around. Hello. Doesn't turn around or look at me or anything. We're waiting right here. Can you not see us? Doesn't turn around and look at me at all. Just straight ahead, silent. I was like, this fucker's lucky I'm not an 8. It was just kind of funny because it was at the end of a succession of like comedic moments like that where we try this line and then all of a sudden that thing that lady's just stuck there and like everybody goes this line. Then we try to go in this line. Now this line doesn't work, and then it was like one of those things. At that point, I was just like, okay, fuck it. We're not going to be in time to bet this race. Let's just go over there and get ready to bet the next one. Cockfights. I don't like making animals fight each other. I don't think that's a good thing. I get that it might be exciting, but I don't know. I don't like it. Now, you might say horse racing is cruel to horses, but it's not cruel to horses. It's life-threatening to horses, which is different. The horses aren't mistreated at all. Yes, they might get whipped a couple of times in a race, but they certainly aren't. I mean, they're cared for like athletes, right? They're not mistreated at all. It's just they're engaging in what's a life-threatening activity for them. So, you might say the same thing about cockfighting, except the difference is if a horse doesn't die in a race, he's usually fine. Just fine, right? So it's like, well, it's very clear what the difference is, actually. The harms to the animal are foreseeable but not intentional in horse racing, but they're foreseeable and intentional in cockfighting, and that's the difference. You might say the whipping isn't intentional, but I don't consider that really a harm or a particularly big deal, because the whip, it's not like it leaves big ass welts on them and they are, it's not like whipping a person, okay? If I were to whip a person, you would be able to easily see the harm done to the body by the fact that there's this big red angry welt, right? The reason they use a horsewhip on a horse is because it's enough, like a slap on the ass, to make the horse feel as though it's being chased, but it doesn't harm the horse at all, the whip. So the thing is, you'd be better off critiquing making the horse feel as though it's being chased by a predator than whipping the horse. Spurs were cruel. Spurs are cruel because spurs actually harm the horse. I don't know. I've had chickens, and they're actually quite nice. They're quite friendly. They can be anyway, some of them. Officer Red was great. She used to come sit on my lap. Just go to sleep right there. She's in Kimberly's lap. Kimberly pet her to sleep. Man, I gotta say, this is the sort of thing that is why people sometimes like stay in BPD relationships, or will feel so much the tragedy of the other person in a BPD relationship, because I have never seen anything like what Kimberly did for that chicken when it got attacked by a dog. She carried that chicken around and nursed it back. That chicken was done. It was dead. It had been mauled by a dog, okay? And she nursed that chicken back to health. It was such amount of care and attentiveness and fretting. She took on the burden of being that chicken's legs for a month. Of feeding it, moving it, and she nursed, and then also one day it stood up and started walking again. It was amazing. There's zero chance that chicken would have survived 2 days if I were in charge of caring for it in that state. Zero chance. But it's like seeing that. I was seeing something very beautiful. Not something that I ever received any of. I mean, it was kind of stark, the juxtaposition. Kimberly loved the animals so well and didn't love me at all like that. But it's like it creates this weird thing where you go, this is clearly not a bad person. So why are they so bad to me? I watched that woman rush out of the car across the street to run to pick up and cradle to her bosom this disgusting, bedraggled, half-dead baby possum from the gutter. And then insists we take it to the vet, where she knew a vet where if you brought in wounded wild animals and they were salvageable, the vet would save them. She knew a vet, that did that. And we had to take it there. The whole time I was thinking two things concurrently. Number one, oh my God, that's fucking disgusting. And number two, why are you such a saint? And wow, you really care about that almost dead possum. Okay, wow, you really care about that almost dead possum you've never seen before. A shit ton more than you care about me. Yeah, I had to dispatch of a couple chickens myself, actually. When chickens get sick and are about to die, you gotta call them. I had to call a couple for that reason. And, no, we never had chicks. I bet it is super hard to step on them. One of the chickens we got turned out to be a rooster, but we got rid of the rooster before it could father any chicks because people didn't like the rooster cock-a-doodle-dooing. If only women would care about men like they do mauled animals. I mean, I think possums are so gross. I don't want anything to do with them. I think Rachel has a much more healthy expression of that similar quality. Like, Rachel is much more attentive in some sense to the cat than I am. Rachel will go for a walk with the cat and will note that the cat wants her to go for a walk with her, which is true, but not something I even notice because the cat has to be really like, hey, Eric, meow, meow. Okay, what do you want, cat? What do you want? To get me, unless I'm feeling like in a cat loving mood, or if it's in our habitual time. The cat and I make love every night in bed for a little while before we go to sleep. Which means she comes and stands on my chest, and I pet her and scratch her bottom near her tail where it gets a little itchy for her. And I know exactly the right strength of scratch that she wants. Not too hard, not too soft. And you give her all the pets that she wants. And depending on how loving she's feeling, she may grace me with a kitty face push, which means she'll take her nose and go like this with her face. But then it's like if she starts doing that too much, I start getting allergy feeling. I'm technically allergic to cats, but people are a lot less allergic to their own cat than to other cats. Did you know that? It's true. You get used to your own cat. Anyway, but still, I'm not so not allergic that a lot of her pushing her fur in my face it causes a little bit of an allergic reaction. So at some point I go, okay, that's enough. I'm getting fur in my mouth, and just get off of me. Of course, the battle I continually have with the cat, as I had it again last night, is I want her on the inside of me on the bed. So there's nothing between me and the edge of the bed. So when I get up to go pee, I don't have to get up around the cat. She always wants to sleep on the outside of me, so that when I get up to go pee, I have to get up around the cat. And this is a continual battle. I will move her to the other side of me, and she'll move herself back as soon as I fall asleep. And then when I get up to go pee again, you're back there again. You silly, beautiful, wonderful, darling kitty. And then I can't do anything except just accept the reality that kitty wins. There's nothing else you can do about it. And if you can't beat them, just submit. Just submit all your dignity. I had a girlfriend that demanded I pull over for a dog on the side of the highway at 3 a.m. She fed it and tried to get it in the car, but it was too big to move. She felt bad about leaving it for months. Yeah, I feel bad about it now, too. Thanks for telling me that sad story. Thanks for making me feel bad, Klaus. You're gonna make me take a week off work. Oh, wait. You made me take a week off work, and you made me take a week off work, and you made me take a week off work. Are you sure it's just not called unemployment? Isn't the difference between a dog, a chicken, and a horse an arbitrary one? Well, yeah, it's arbitrary, but that means that it matters a lot to me, right? I have no problem seeing a praying mantis capture and eat a hummingbird, but Rachel doesn't like that. I don't. It makes her not happy to hear the sound of the hummingbird going tweet 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 or whatever as a praying mantis. That doesn't bother me at all. But I definitely don't want to see a praying mantis eat a kitten. No, I don't want to see that. That's for some reason different. And is it an arbitrary reason? Yes, it is arbitrary. That's why it's important that the world obey me regarding my arbitrary rules. I don't like to see in shows, for example, things that are too certain kinds of brutal and or certain kinds of SI shit. Like, I don't like to see in a television show somebody puking. It's going to make me feel like I got to puke. Or something too gross is going to make me feel like I got to puke, you know? Also, if I see certain kinds of SI discomfort, I'll get this kind of vicarious discomfort, so I don't want to watch that. Also, I don't like to see kissing scenes and intimacy scenes. Movies and TV shows don't need to show me that part. Just show them looking suggestively at each other, going into a room, closing the door behind them. I'll get the rest. I get the gist of it. They're having sexual intercourses. I don't need to see them writhing around in bed, right? It's like, that's their privacy time. Don't show that. So yes, it is the case that I can't justify really opposing well, I mean, I can't justify an opposition to cockfighting on a rights ground, because animals definitely don't have rights. But I can appeal to the fact that, in general, I don't find competition. Well, I do, though. The thing is, I do like watching boxing and stuff. So, I don't know. It's just arbitrary. There's not any good reason for any of this. Because it's not a TI matter, really. It's an FI matter, you know. Have I seen a scanner darkly? No. I don't think so. I've heard of it plenty of times, but I don't think I've ever seen it. Hey, Bogdan. I've told you before. It's generalissimo to you. I'm generalissimo, Eric. It's either generalissimo or glorious leader. One of the two. I'm the glorious leader, and you are all my followers. I'm the one with the wisdom, and you need to learn. I'm Leo from actualize.org, and I'm going to talk to you as though you don't know anything, but I'm very concerned that you take the impact of the massive wisdom I'm going to dump on you right now very seriously, because this is seriously deep and true thing that almost nobody knows about. Are you ready? You are an illusion. What type is that guy? I do not know what type he is. I just know that everything about him makes me want to vomit blood. Correct, but the animals also don't have rights, and boxers do. So, the issue of exactly what our standards ought to be regarding animals is not one that can be TI ascertained exactly, because animals don't have rights. So, while I agree with you that cockfighting is cruel and that it's a good reason to not do it, I also can't really justify that while concurrently enjoying boxing and MMA, which I do. More boxing than MMA, but and I can't really justify it while enjoying horse racing, because the justification that I would use, namely that the outcome of a horse dying is foreseeable but not intentional in horse racing, whereas it's not the case in cockfighting, but that would imply a moral calculus that involves another party with rights, which there isn't, so it's not a good justification, so ultimately it's just arbitrary. But nevertheless, we intuitively tend to think that standard of foreseeable versus intentional is a good one to apply, and that's more or less how we've constructed our animal cruelty laws. You watched Blue is the Warmest Color in theater. It has 15-minute lesbian pornographic sex scene. It was me and about 60 lesbian couples watching, and lots walked out giving me mean looks. What? I'm a lesbian too, you should have said. I'm part of a gay couple. I'm part of a gay couple. Things have been different now that I've come out of the closet. I'm a gay couple. One half of Rachel and Eric. Oh, thanks for linking that. Oh, it makes me want to watch it. Did that just publish or something? Copy link address. Put it in the pew, then put it in the pew, and put it in the what, and put it in the who, and put it in the where, put it in the who, and blah blah blee blee blue. Maybe you got them blocked. Maybe he pissed you off one time and you blocked him, okay, Ian? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about what? Have you thought about fists? What song was I saying? Yesterday in the car, I was suggesting to Rachel that somebody should do an 80s rap version of When Somebody Loves You from Toy Story 2. When somebody loves you, everything is... Let me look up the lyrics to it. The thing is those lesbians knew anything about pervy men, they'd know that pervy men don't want to watch two girls going at it unless there's a dick in one of their mouths. Everybody knows that. Those lesbians need to... Those lesbians need to learn the truth. You learn the truth about heterosexual men. Two girls isn't good enough, sorry. Neither of you has any penis in you. I think we've ascertained the problem here. Let's watch this video and see if we enjoy it. Blah, 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 blah. Oops, I have the audio settings on the wrong thing. I'll have to adjust that. Hold on one second. Please, please, please forgive me. Forgive us. Forgive the channel. This momentary technical difficulty. I know it's not excusable. I know I'm asking a lot, but please, if you possibly can, forgive that brief technical difficulty. I'd greatly appreciate it. Here comes the Out4 Promise video.
Hey, so I still haven't found that tennis courts yet.
I'm sorry. Have I met you before? You look familiar.
Yeah, I mean, I've been here before. I think it was like, I don't know, like 20 minutes ago, and like I don't know where my tennis team is.
Are you the one who was asking me earlier about whether Neapolitan ice cream was invented by Napoleon?
No. I mean, like, I don't really know, but like, also, I don't know where my tennis court is.
Are you the one who was asking me about latitude and longitude earlier?
But like, no. I was asking you where the tennis courts were because I don't know where my tennis court is. I'm missing my team.
Yes. The lion tamer, yes?
Well, like, I wish I knew how to tame a lion, and like, I think with enough practice I could. But honestly, right now, I just don't know where the tennis courts are.
Tennessee. Taking a swing at the old racket club, are you?
Yes, I mean, you look like a business person who knows where they're talking about.
They call me Ignacio, man of information.
So, do you have any information about the tennis court?
Yes. Well, first you go over here, and then you go over here, and then you go back over here, and then you go back over here, and then you wait for someone to ask you a question. And then when they do, you say, interested in this, are you? And that's how you get to the tennis courts.
I feel like I did that. Like, we just had a conversation about the tennis courts, and I'm asking you again.
Let me walk you through it. Like this. First you go over here, then you go over here, then you go over here. Then you go over here, and then you're at the tennis courts.
So, like, I've been at the tennis court the whole time, and you haven't said a thing?
Hold on. Are you looking for the tennis courts?
I am.
Yeah, I don't know where those are. That was pretty good. Thing is, of course, that won't do very well as a video because it's not a short. And my doll videos, when they're not shorts, or our doll videos, when they're not shorts, but mine historically as well, don't do very well at all. But here's the fact about the shorts channel though. So I did this video called explaining my shorts experiment, where I made 90 videos, about 5 or 6 seconds long each, I set up a doll shoot area and made a shit ton of them, saying various things, uploaded 90 of them, scheduled them about an hour apart, and that channel already has 14,000 views in like 2 days. So the experiment, though, thus far seems to be upholding what I expected to some extent. So it makes me want to continue that approach. It doesn't. It's kind of a lot of work to upload all those shorts and make all those shorts, but in terms of like hours to impact, it's a small ratio of hours to impact, it seems like, because being just a shorts channel, it makes it such that I don't have to worry about my subs at all. I don't have to worry about community members. I don't have to worry about people complaining about this or that or the other thing. Because pretty much nobody comments on shorts. And they, at best, still have a lower like ratio than the best like ratios of longs. In general, they have less viewer engagement, in other words. And I think that the viewers of shorts are less likely to be a fan of a channel. You know, they're on the shorts feed. They're not at shorts channels. But there's another factor, which is this. I've discovered that if you have a channel that has only shorts on it, YouTube treats it differently than if you have a channel that has both shorts and longs on it. If you have a channel like mine and you upload shorts, they then, after being uploaded as shorts, get treated as regular videos. So when I click on a video, a short video on Talking with Famous People, it opens the video like a regular YouTube channel video. When I click on a shorts video on my shorts channel, it opens up this weird page that doesn't work, that treats all of my videos as a vertical scroll down page of shorts. So it's broken, this feature of YouTube, but because no matter which video on that scroll down I push play on, it always actually plays the top video. So it's broken, but it's clearly YouTube is trying to do something here that they're going to enable first in channels that are exclusively shorts channels and have already enabled, but it just doesn't work. The problem is, the downside of that, I don't seem to be able to customize my channel on the front page, the shorts channel, to have an uploads section where I can just push play all and watch all my shorts in succession, nice and easy, as videos, because it keeps making me go to this weird vertical scroll down page thing instead. So I have a number of mixed reactions to this shorts experiment and the apparent success of it. One of my reactions is frustration, in the sense that like building a subscriber base on this channel, which has never really been my express goal, I guess, but one more express goal has always been, I want my videos to be seen by a lot of people. You know, I want to maximize my exposure, and I do feel like I've built a robust community of people, relatively small, but a community that's also getting more, it's getting closer, it's getting more community-ish, in part because I'm getting to be less and less of a dick and less FE abrasive overall. So you know, at any given moment that may change. And if you, it's like a stock marketing thing, right? You gotta look at the overall shit, not this moment or that. What was I talking about?
The difference between the shorts.
Oh yeah, right. So another though thing I consider is that maybe what this is really revealing, Eric, is that you're at your best when the medium compels you to NI most. And it's not so much a problem with the difference between the respective media, which is to say formats like uploads versus shorts, nor is it a problem with, it's silly to say things like, people don't care enough about important enough stuff or whatever. It's ridiculous to say shit like that. Or people's attention spans are too short. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. I hate, nobody please ever interpret what I'm saying as meaning those things at all. But at the same time, I also have a sense that there are certain explanations that are of value, that it would be of value were they to attain status as dominant paradigm, right? And a lot of those explanations can't be explicated in 6 seconds. So, in that regard, to the extent that I have an agenda, my agenda links to the primacy of cognitive functions as a metaframe. I want to I am an activist in favor of that affirmation. But, and the shorts feed has nothing to do with that, right? And this channel only has something to do with that. So, in a larger sense, I think to myself, it boils down to this question. To what extent is what I'm doing a phenomenon that would occur to anybody who puts up a bunch of 6-second videos of more or less anything? To what extent is it that? To what extent does the shorts feed reward actual quality and threshold out lower quality stuff? And to what extent does is my success at making shorts linked to my success as a creator? In other words, am I succeeding in shorts because I'm good at shorts or because I'm making a lot of shorts? And I don't have a clear answer to that question. And I guess I just finally got down to the core question that I've been trying to wrestle with here is, am I good at making shorts, or is it easy to be successful at short making? If I'm good at making shorts, then I'm much happier about the success of the shorts channel than if it's easy to be successful making shorts. Because in the latter situation, then it's reduced YouTube to a TE thing. Oh, I found an exploit. That's not good. That's bad. So, this live chat don't work. It don't? I'm sorry to hear that. Well, I'm not looking for how to do what I want to do in this instance, Mom. I'm looking for an explanation of what something means. And I don't think anybody's going to be able to give me that explanation except maybe YouTube themselves. Here's the most encouraging piece of data I have. The short in which I showed myself not putting the trash in the trash can, picking up that center thing, putting it in, I knew when I uploaded it, I thought, this is hot, right? It's going to work well. And in fact, it got 30,000 views. And that's substantially more than any of my other shorts. The second most, though, was 10,000. However, the second most, 10,000 views, was a shot from above of Rachel eating salad and me saying, it's good to eat salad if you like to eat leaves, or something like that, right? So, in the first instance, it would seem that my intuition about what comprises a good short links well to YouTube providing me getting more views. In the second instance, my intuition would say, okay, then I can't really intuit very well how successful a short is going to be, because I still can't figure out why that one got 10,000 views versus some other little quip that maybe I thought was better. Everybody here is a famous person, yes. Once you've chatted with me, you become officially a famous person. Now, that doesn't make you a celebrity, but it does make you a famous person. I don't know if we have many people in that center bit between the two circles in the diagram that are both celebrities and famous people. I'd like to expand that, and we could be like Scientology. Scientology is committed to expanding that center thing of the two circles of Scientology and celebrities. That is a good title, though. The Great Shorts Experiment, Boxers or Briefs, is a good title. Okay, so how would you define success on YouTube? What will make you satisfied you're successful? The amount of views being recognized when you are in public? What is your definition here? Well, I mean, in this instance, the issue is I want to know what it means that I was able to get 14,000 views in about a day by putting up shorts. Does it mean that I'm good at making shorts? Or does it mean that you can just treat YouTube like a machine where you just insert 6 seconds of whatever, and if you insert it often enough, you're going to get some payback from it, like in terms of views? No, but what I'm explaining there is absolutely true. I do care a lot about it, right? But I want to know what's going on with the phenomenon I described there, where intuitively I get why that trash can short got 30,000. And I get the ways in which it works better as a short than probably any other short I've made. And I think, oh, okay, so my intuition can be informative to me about this matter. But then there's the salad one, which is inconsistent with my intuition. And this is in contrast with my feelings about regular YouTube videos. By and large, I have a very clear understanding when I upload a video of how well liked it's going to be, how successful it'll be or not. And if my intuition on that is wrong, by watching it a couple of times, I will understand why it is how it is. It all makes sense, okay? So it's like, I know that TI boring complex videos have decent like ratios, no comments, and not that many views. I know that Eric's comedy videos get the least views of all, or music, one of the two. My music's equivalently low views. That people, basically, my I have a subset of subs that likes those little bit of things, but most people aren't interested in those parts of me that I have to offer, right? And I get that, and I also know I have good intuition about the fact that if I put up a really good song, it'll get higher like ratio than if I put up a hamburger song. And I can predictably understand why results, like measurable bits of data correlate with my intuition in predictable ways when it comes to regular uploads. And so I can, whether or not it's how I think it should be, I have a good sense of what to do creatively if I were to want to maximize giving people exactly what they want and try to get as many views as possible. I may not be able to do it perfectly, but I know what to do, basically. With the shorts, maybe the problem is I just haven't given it enough time, gathered the data, and figured it out. That's part of why this experiment, you know? Yeah, Albanian hats equal side views, right? Host Eric, just a bit more on this channel is going to be getting tons of subscribers, just that you don't give a shit about YouTube. So, I guess what I'm really doing now is muling about in an SI vacuum. I don't have enough data from my shorts experiment, and I need to make more shorts as well of the same sort. And then I'll have a narrowly framed enough bit of kind of video. So in other words, once I've uploaded a few hundred different doll shorts, exploring that sub-medium, then I'll have a good sense of what kind of doll shorts are successful and which kinds aren't. And I'll be able to see if there are any patterns there. Like, if it turns out that all the doll shorts with Tiffany in it do better consistently, and the ones with the guy in the suit in it do worse consistently, okay, well now we're on to something I can sink my teeth into as far as understanding things, right? Like, alright, there is a linkage here between what I'm offering and how it performs that I can know about in some way. So Winston's mom says, allow me to ask you something functional here. Yes, you NI good, and you have honed NI with experience, but in understanding your audience, do you trust your FE data input to understand what they want? Yes, because I have learned and honed FE regarding what they don't want. So I understand now better, at least consciously, intellectually, although I don't necessarily apply it as well very, very much, that vocalizations of inclusiveness and honest humility, I'm not going to play false modesty, but there's plenty of areas where I can genuinely be humble, no problem, and I need to vocalize those more. It humanizes me and makes it inclusive, right? We're in this together. I am, like, the thing is, I never thought otherwise, but it helped in that Jordan Peterson video yesterday for me to explicitly say, Jordan Peterson's a lot smarter than I am. He has a much higher IQ. And yet I'm more correct. It's not like I've ever tried to say I'm smarter than Jordan Peterson or have a higher IQ. But by me conceding that, for a lot of people who are focused on that kind of thing, it's an important point. It makes it such that it's no longer, from their perspective, it's no longer about Eric so much, and it's more about the ideas he's talking about. In reality, it's completely fucking irrelevant. But, and that's why I no, I just put Torts in there because it rhymed. There's no discussion of tort yet, actually, at all, so we might get to tort law at some point, but I doubt it. Vic Sharma, Vic Sharma, that's not your name. Vic Sharma. My ass, Vic Sharma. VK Sharma in the house. Offering Vishnu this here mouse.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what you do when you walk in a room? Yo, VK Sharma in the VK Sharma in the house. Offering Vishnu this here mouse. I'm here. Hey everybody, it's me, VK Sharma. You can call me Sharma. You can call me Sharma Chameleon if you'd like. It's fine as well. Or Charmeleon would probably be preferable. So anyway, I got interrupted in my train of thought there by something wonderful. Oh, by the arrival of somebody named Vic Sharma. You know, we had somebody in here before whose name's Kang Krishna Sarmapagu. That's quite a name. That's quite a mouthful. And I said, Kang Krishna Sarmapagu? That can't possibly be your name. Oh, it was her name. It was. She was lying not about that. Try you must. Let's see. What was I talking about? Oh, the short speed, right? So anyway, I guess I've talked through the idea, so now I feel a little bit more comfortable with the whole thing as to what it was that was meowing me. I don't have an opinion about it right now. Let me look at it until I Google it. I don't know. This case doesn't bring anything immediately to mind. I don't know it off the top of my head. Huh. Holding. Maryland has no authority to regulate or prohibit Virginia, its political subdivisions, or Virginia's residents from enjoying Virginia's riparian rights in the Potomac River, while Maryland owns the riverbed up to the low water mark of the Virginia shore. Both states enjoy equal riparian rights. I'm very happy you brought it to my attention. I don't have a very nuanced response to it at the moment. My initial response is that it's a good decision. My initial response is that it's a good decision because, of course, you don't want you really don't want one state telling people on the other side of the river who live in the other state that they can't access the water of the river because it's not their state's river. I mean, the thing is, flowing water is subject to a different calculus than other things. That's why water rights are a separate matter and always have been a separate matter. Water rights are the sum total of how humanity dealt with the environmental issue prior to industrialization. Prior to industrialization, the only environmental issue there was water rights. Which is to say, it's always been a bit of a problem for human civilization that if you live downstream from some other human population, that whatever they toss in the river is not their problem ever again. It goes away from them. You know. And also that they only need the river basically from where they are upstream, because it makes sense always to travel upstream on your boat, and it never makes sense to travel downstream on your boat. Or whatever work you're going to do, it makes sense to do it upstream from the village, never downstream from the village, because you can always transport along the river whatever work you're doing upstream back downstream. So, as a consequence, there's this issue of water rights. Correct. You are doing nothing to directly harm me or my people. In other words, when you dump that, whatever it is you're dumping in the river, you are not trying to harm me. However, it's foreseeable, and the nature of water is such that you have an affirmative duty to respect the water rights of people downstream from you in the same way that you enjoy upstream people from you respecting, upholding their duty to respect your water rights. The only community or people who aren't subject to this sort of reciprocal rule are those at the very top of the river. So if you're right at the foot of the mountains, where all the snow melt is coming down and forming the beginning of this rushing river, or coming to a lake, let's say, it comes to a big lake, and then that lake empties out into a river. Let's say your community is right there where the lake empties out into a river, then proceeds, hundreds of miles downstream. That person there can claim, well, I don't need anybody else to do anything for me, so I should have to do anything for anybody else. The only reason they don't need anybody else to do anything for them is because they're at the very top. So there's nobody above them. So there's no possibility of an actualization of the thing they say they're not asking for. But that's not a reason to think they don't require it still, nevertheless. Nowadays, we have to apply similar logic to air pollution. So if in fact the Supreme Court had ruled otherwise on this, then it might also be the case that because of the Santa Ana winds always blowing east to west in Los Angeles, that the state of Arizona, according to California, can no longer have their factories produce smoke because it blows onto us and during the Santa Ana winds. And California owns California's air rights, and so you're violating our air rights, so we get to say what the state of Arizona does in their sovereign territory. That would not set a good precedent, right? The states, just because something in one state impacts something in another state, doesn't afford that other state control over the thing in the first, over how the first state deals with the thing. All right, now I will address these other questions. Can you please tell big difference between INFP and INTP? How to identify between one of them? You're asking me one of the questions I have the least good answers for that you could possibly ask. Alright, VK Sharma. I have trouble distinguishing between the two of them myself. And the reason, I think, is because I have trouble recognizing FI. I don't. It might be, sometimes it's right in front of my face, and I don't recognize it as introverted feeling. Or I can't tell what it is. You know, it's like, is this person introverted feeling is a question I have trouble answering. Is this person introverted thinking? Well, I can test that, and INFPs perform very well on those introverted thinking test questions, usually. They don't perform quite up to par with the INTPs, but they perform well enough that in the absence of me being able to see what FI looks like clearly and recognize it for what it is, I'm off. I did so in not too long ago video, in fact. I'm going to call an INFP and say, I think you're an INTP. Because after all, you do well in the TI questions, you do well in the NE questions. You're clearly SE polar. That makes you an INTP. But actually, they're an INFP because they didn't do that well on the TI questions. And I didn't really see an INTP in front of me. It's just that I felt like, it's funny. It's like, I guess what I'm saying is, it seems like they earned it with their test question results. But, and I don't want to use the fact that they seem different than INTPs in some way as a justification for typing them at all. So, and I don't have good test questions for FI that I trust anyway. I don't know how to trust I don't know how to get to a trustworthy position that says this person's FI that I can argumentationally sustain. No, the INFP is my supervisor. I can tell that, but that's not super reliable. So if an INFP is in a really good mood and likes me a lot, or is happy to be talking with me, then I can't tell. I don't get as much of that supervisor vibe. Some of them I get more of it than others, and then also I'm not really good at reading my own vibes in that area. Sometimes I'll recognize that I've been getting this vibe for a while, but didn't notice it for a bit. And, you know. VK Sharma. I feel, I may be wrong, but INFP don't intimidate people, but INTP sometimes can do. Am I on the right track? Well, it's a good question because it'll help me explain a point here. Whether or not you find INTPs or INFPs intimidating is entirely dependent on your type. I find INFPs intimidating. I don't find INTPs intimidating at all. Because INFPs are my supervisor type, whereas INTPs are my quadromate, whatever that type's called, I don't know, but INTPs and I see very eye to eye and get along well. INFPs intimidate me more, but I have to be, my radar has to be open to that intimidation. So it's like when somebody comes in and their genuine happiness makes me gives me the information I need on an FE level, then I'm satisfied with it and assume it's FE information, even though it's not. It's FI information. And as their sort of initial bubbliness simmers, they may fall into that naturally mysterious, ripply stillness of an INFP. The mysterious, ripply stillness of an INFP. What I mean by that is they're giving you lots of information, but they're not giving you any information about how they think you're performing. From my perspective, like, I can tell that they're a judging type, that they will reach a conclusion that represents a status about me in this experience, but they're not giving me any information about how I'm doing. And that's why INFP is intimidating. But like I said, they don't always, because if they're happy and in their NE, I'll typically mistake that as cues as to how I'm performing. Because they're being demonstrative, like in the conventional sense, the colloquial sense. They're demonstrating they're revealing their feelings to me in ways that are consistent with how FE tries to reveal feelings to people. Eric, what's the difference between alternative and rich bastards? I don't know what that means. Yeah, I don't think NTJs and NTPs find each other intimidating. I don't think INTPs or ENTPs are intimidated by either INTJs or ENTJs, and I think all four types experience the other types being intimidated by them. What I'm saying is, in general, people find four types intimidating, at least intellectually. ENTJs, INTJs, ENTPs, INTPs. At least, put it this way, that when that person there says they find INTPs intimidating, what they mean is they find the clear more smart than meanness of the INTP to make me feel intimidated because they're more smart than. But what I was saying there is that NTJs are not intimidated by NTPs, and NTPs are not intimidated by NTJs. Nor are NTPs intimidated by each other, nor are NTJs intimidated by each other. Now, types that can also be intimidating but in a different way are ESTJs, ESTPs, maybe even, probably not ESFPs, I don't think they're very intimidating. But ESTJs are intimidating because they frame life through utility, task completion, etc. And additionally, their FE is rough around the edges. So, and then ESTPs can be intimidating because there's just a sort of like, hey, look, I run things around here. So and people could be intimidated by that. Again, STPs and NTPs are not intimidated by each other. STPs may or may not be intimidated by NTPs ISTJs, as far as nobody's intimidated by ISTJs, but as far as ESTJs go, NTPs are going to be more subject to either intimidation or conflict with ESTJs, depending on the context. I find my dad intimidating, but it's probably just because he's my dad. Most of the time with ESTJs, I find them benefiting from my correcting them. The utility frame delegitimizes the NTP, as the correctness frame delegitimizes the NTJ. So it's why NTJs and NTPs aren't intimidated by each other, right? It's like we don't respect each other's frame very much. So I know NTPs know that NTPs are going to be correct within their frame. NTJs know that NTJs are going to be correct within their frame. NTPs know that, yeah, but NTP framing is the correct framing. NTJs go, no you don't. And I can't exactly explain why. That's how it goes. No, nobody's ever a mixture of two. They're always one type. Exactly one, yeah, exactly 16. I have a degree. Why would I want a symbol of competency when I have actual competency? It's like telling it's like telling Stephen King, wow, you're qualified to teach a writing class. Or, wow, Stephen King, hey, you know what? You might be able to get your PhD in writing. Why would he want his PhD in writing? That's just like a symbol of, it's like if you don't have success on the metrics of the thing, then you might need a symbolic representation of it, like a degree. But it's always preferable to have the actual proof of competency rather than a degree. So the reason I was a very successful debate coach was not because I got a degree in debate, was not because I was a certified rhetorician, it's not because I was a licensed metaphysician. It's because my kids won the most. So when your kids win the most, then you get afforded this legitimate status, real status of being a badass debate coach. No matter how many pieces of paper I say to declare me a badass debate coach, that I get a stack of such papers a mile high. Won't convince anybody as much as actually kicking ass, taking names. In fact, it won't convince anybody of anything except that you're desperate to try to convince them that you're good at your thing, right? Because there's a very real criterion instead. I can analyze anybody. Personality doesn't express as strengths and weaknesses exactly. It expresses in attentional habits and predictable. It does express as people being predictably vulnerable to certain kinds of arguments, or open to certain kinds of arguments, and predictably closed to other kinds of arguments. But I don't operate like that. So V.K. Sharma says, do you feel it gives you an edge over people in your personal and career front? You can beat anyone psychologically. Well, in my career, historically, as a debate coach, the only way to win debate tournaments is to be more correct. In other words, it's never about the debaters, it's always about the ideas. Now, the debaters may be either especially good at understanding and delivering those ideas or not that good, but it's always about having the best ideas. So there's never that kind of person-to-person psychology battle kind of thing going on. When it came to my job as a director and HR person, I did the hiring and training and drew up the curriculum and stuff. I didn't know about cognitive functions back then anyway. So I wouldn't have, I don't know, I have no answer to that. I probably would have applied my knowledge of cognitive functions quite a bit had I known it when I was hiring people during that period of time and stuff. When I was a director and in charge of a bunch of people, then yeah, I probably would have used the information to better understand why people were the way they were and what I could expect from them and what I couldn't, you know? But in my own life, the only times that I really apply my cognitive function knowledge to the particulars in ways that aren't mapping better. In other words, I'm frequently noting things in my life and how they inform me about cognitive functions. But I'm rarely using my knowledge about cognitive functions to make any kind of decisions about anything or inform my behavior or actions. Occasionally, it does, and I make note of it. So, there was a time when Rachel got up and puked. And I almost got up and puked. I almost got up and cleaned up her puke, because if it had been me, or at least if I probably would have cleaned up my own puke too. But if I had felt sick enough, I might have just left it there and gone and lying down, depending on how sick I feel. You know, I don't expect Rachel certainly to do anything when she's feeling that sick except be sick. But as she walked away from the vomit, this direction up the porch, while my first thought was she's going in to lie down, I'll go clean up her puke, I said, no, I bet you she's not. Her FE tool is going to make such the first thing she did is go back there and clean it up herself, especially with SE4. And in fact, that was exactly what happened. And so in that instance, it informed my decision making. Do I try to manipulate people with my knowledge? Not at all. Not remotely, because if I'm talking to somebody in the particular well enough to know their type and have that impact my approach to them, then I wouldn't do them the disservice of behaving instrumentally with them like that without I'm a big believer in fully informed decision making, sometimes too much. I remember Taylor in Estp one time told me, you got to understand, Eric, sometimes people just want to be told what to do. They don't want to be fully informed about why you're saying yeah and what you're trying to do. They don't want to make a bunch of choices. Sometimes they want to have the course that they end up taking facilitated for them and justified for them. But because I'm not in general engaging with people in an instrumental fashion, I'm not trying to get anything out of people. I'm not trying to maneuver people to do things, right? I'm trying to win the argument in a way that's more inclusive. It would be, if you might put that as a general overarching goal, which is not the same thing as trying to be more persuasive. So, like, Winston's mom sends me these emails, and some of them are fantastic, and some of them are annoying. When she keeps wanting to talk to me about logos, ethos, and pathos and stuff, you're not getting it at all. Persuasion is a devil's bargain, okay? Almost every tool of persuasion is a tool of language misuse. So yeah, it is perhaps more persuasive to people when you say there's a universal right to health care, because you're co-opting some of the power, emotional power, that the word right, when it's used correctly, ought to elicit. So persuasion should never be the goal. Instead, what should be the goal is something like this. I need to make it clear that this is a safe truth for everyone. It's a safe truth for you. It's a safe truth for your ego. It's not judgmental against you. It's not biased against you in some fashion. And that makes cognitive functions especially tricky, because the reason that people should listen to me about these matters is because cognitive functions have made it such that I'm uniquely empowered to be right. Well, that automatically says to these people, hey, when you say you're uniquely empowered to be right as opposed to me, then this is definitely casting judgment on me. It's telling me I'm not capable of being as correct about things as you are, Eric. So the challenge then is this. It is the case that regarding the very limited forum called Ideation about Philosophy and use of language to understand and explain things, that I am both typologically and personally uniquely well positioned to do those things. But what I'm trying to explain is that favoring of Eric that keeps coming up in this thin little forum here is a necessary reality to come to terms with in order for that forum, for us to begin to talk about cognitive functions in a way that no longer focuses on why I'm right, but instead focuses on why normative frames of psychology that try to tell you that you're being different than me and therefore wrong about this make you worse than me in some way, because you're equivalently better at something else that I'm equivalently shitty at. It's just that this particular forum, I've placed myself in the right sport. It's like the horse racing jockey is spending all their time playing basketball, pickup basketball games. And they get angry if I say, well, I'm uniquely advantaged here because I'm 7'2", and you're not well positioned to be successful in this endeavor. And then they get all huffy. Then they go off to go horse racing because they're a jockey, and they win their horse races. And I'm not there trying to compete against them in horse racing. So they don't notice that there's an equivalent time where if I were there, it would be totally unfair against me, where I'd be too big and heavy and not good at riding horses, and they'd kick my ass every time. And I'd be wrong every time in that regard, right? And so, because the nature of the sport we're doing here is also how we understand sports in general, and that happens to be the sport, explaining that kind of shit is the sport that I'm good at, and that I don't go attempt to compete with them at the sports they're good at, then I have to deal with this whole separate arrogantness thing. Separateness or arrogance or exclusivity. People want to be included in your truth when they can feel part of it and feel ownership of it. And we understand, yeah, we are the enlightened ones. But then if you want to play that angle, you too come join Be the Enlightened Ones, then you run the risk of getting culty and teamy. So the reality is, you don't get to become an enlightened one by agreeing with Eric. You have to understand it yourself. And Eric constantly explaining as he's understanding it more and more himself may be a contributing factor to you understanding it yourself. And things you say may be a contributing factor to understanding it myself. And we shouldn't really be keeping that much track. But regardless, you're not going to be right by just agreeing with Eric. You're going to be right when you make Eric's arguments in the appropriate time for the right reasons, because you've encountered those arguments and recognize that they're the best arguments to make in that context. That's when you'll be right. Otherwise, you're just agreeing with me, and that's not anything. Who do you think ESTPs find intimidating? Well, they're supervisor type, I would guess. ISFPs? So, like, one technique that is very valuable for me, potentially, is to highlight the fact a lot more, that I'm not particularly smart. And that I'm waiting for all the people who are at least as smart or close to me, or smarter, or even way smarter, to come and help metastasize this particular hugely significant truth that this scrub happened to unearth at the archaeological dig. To the extent that I can frame it like that, all of a sudden the ideas are much more inviting to others, because it's not me saying you need to come and absorb my truth. Rather, it's like, is it closed? I thought it was at 2:30 I had. Hello? Hello?
Hi, Mr. Strauss. Can you send my sister a Zoom link, please?
I thought it was at 2:30.
Oh.
Isn't that what we said? Let me check my calendar.
Oh, okay.
And I know it's on my calendar at 2:30 because my boop 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 thing went half an hour ago.
Oh, huh.
So she already did send her a Zoom link. It's on the calendar. Let me see. Let me check the invite. Oh no, it is at 2 o'clock. My bad.
Alright, cool.
Yeah, there already is a meet link, so she just needs to click that. Okay, my bad.
Alright.
Alright, bye. Bye. I gotta go to work, guys. I fucked up. I thought it was at 2:30. It was actually at 2. You can pinpoint it much younger than 13, VK Sharma. Much younger. As a longtime school teacher and a parent myself, I can tell you. I'm not exactly sure when it's determinate, but it's much younger than 13. Anyway, I gotta go. I gotta go to work. Yeah, I occasionally do a little bit of actual real work, so this is one of those rare times. See you later. I love you all. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.